Okay, welcome everyone. I am Maureen Spillane, and I'm the program manager for the NYFIC. I'm based at RPI in Troy, New York, and I'm glad that you could all join us today. I'm joined on this call by several other members of the NYFIC consortium. And I'm not going to introduce everyone because I want to make sure that we have enough time for questions and enough time to get through our program. But I will, as we call on people and as others contribute, I will make sure to call everyone out. I'd like to get started right away and talk to you about the program and the grants in particular. So let me share my screen. I hope. Okay, I'm hoping that everyone can see my screen at this point. And we're going to talk about the NYFIC grant program. We'll start with by giving you an overview of the NYFIC, and then we'll talk about the grant program and the application process in particular, and then we will go through questions. We do have some questions that people submitted in advance, so we'll start with those, and then we'll move on to any other questions that anyone has. Okay, so the NYFIC is a statewide initiative that is supported by the governor and the Empire State Development's Division of Science, Technology, and Innovation, otherwise known as NYSTAR. And it's comprised of 6 consortium members. So RPI, the Hudson Valley Textile Project, FIT in New York City, Made X Hudson, SUNY Morrisville, and the Field to Fiber Company. So the NYFIC has a vision to make New York State an innovative leader in sustainable textiles and fashion, and to leverage the agriculture, manufacturing, and design skills and talents that we have here in New York State, all contributing to a more resilient economy for the state. The mission is to connect researchers, farmers, designers, manufacturers to accelerate innovative solutions using natural fibers and next generation biomaterials to really catalyze and help the New York State circular supply chain grow. We're working on a number of initiatives already to advance and enhance sustainable development in New York. The Northeast Fiber Exchange was set up for raw material sourcing, and that's done in partnership with the Hudson Valley Textile Project. We have the NYFIC Lab, which will be opening in the summer of 2026, available for testing and textile sampling and small prototype development. And then we also have the NYFIC Community, Sustainable Textiles and Innovation in New York. So we have community calls that are held periodically, and also a LinkedIn group. So we encourage you to join the community to keep in touch with what's going on at NYFIC. And the biannual grant program, which is what I think most of you are interested in right now. So with regard to the grant program, the grants are up to $10,000 per recipient. The application period for this round, which is round 4, is April 13th through June 1st at 11:59 p.m. So everybody turns into a pumpkin on midnight, June 2nd. The award notifications will go out in fall of 2026. And we generally award up to 16 grants annually across 2 rounds. At this point, we have some flexibility, and we may do a few more grants in these next 2 rounds, but the overall number tends to be 8 grants per round. The program duration, we expect to continue awarding grants through 2027. So the grant benefits, in addition to funding, we have a mentorship program with members from the statewide consortium. So we have people available to support not only applicants, but also those who win the grants or are awarded the grants. There is a virtual 12-week business coaching program, which is designed to help all of the grant recipients work through their project and give them different sorts of business training and information about how to achieve success in their project overall. They have opportunities to showcase their work at NYFIC hosted events and statewide gatherings, and sourcing support through the Northeast Fiber Exchange. There will also be access to the NYFIC lab for testing and sampling when the lab is open in late summer. So what does the grant program focus on? We are trying to stimulate innovation in 5 key areas. First, in fiber cultivation and processing. So we want to look at expanding environmentally sustainable cultivation and processing of plants and animal fibers. Next generation biomaterials. So develop bio-based materials and feedstocks with an emphasis on New York sourced inputs and production. Textile supply chain and infrastructure development. So building facilities and acquiring or developing the equipment and the logistics to catalyze the supply chain here. Sustainable yarn and textile development. In particular, we're looking for people who can develop commercially relevant yarns, fabrics, felts, and other textile materials using New York fibers, and that will support a broader adoption across fashion and interior design. And lastly, sustainable fashion and interior design industry uses. So some grantees in the past have successfully created apparel, accessories, and home products that highlight the New York grown fibers and materials. So some of the examples of things that we would be looking for or possible projects include new fashion or home decor products made with New York raised wool, hemp, flax, or biomaterials. For example, one of our grantees is working on comforters, wool-filled comforters. Addressing related supply chain and manufacturing issues. Some other grantees are working on equipment that will improve the process and expedite it. Creating commercially viable yarns or textile materials. And then the development of New York grown feedstocks. So, some proposals have been for using different, basically offshoots or leftovers from certain dairy processing. So there are lots of different options there. Eligibility. So we accept applicants or applications from New York State-based businesses and organizations that could include farmers, researchers, manufacturers, designers, brands, retailers, and educators. And projects must be conducted primarily in New York State. Applicants must apply through an eligible entity. So we are not accepting applications from individuals who are not affiliated with one of those other entities that I just mentioned. okay? Participation is welcome from all eligible applicants, veterans, women, people with disabilities, LGBTQ. We're looking for a diverse group of applicants and ultimately grantees. And applicants, however, may submit only one round or one application per round. Collaborative applications are allowed, but the maximum per project is $10,000. So if you apply with someone else, we would not double the grant and give you $20,000. We're limiting it. The maximum award is $10,000. Applicant organizations must have an existing connection to and an intent to operate in New York State. So the project work predominantly must be carried out in New York State. RPI and NYFIC members and their organizations, please look at the grants conflict of interest policy on the website for eligibility information. Okay, so how do you apply? Some of you may have already done this, but you go to our website and you complete the web-based application. This is something that you can do in stages. You have the option to create a Jot form account, which is free of charge, so that you could work over this over time and save your application until you are ready to submit it. All the required fields marked in red have to be completed, but please, you may not go over the character limits as shown. Sorry. If you are working with partners or collaborators, excuse me, especially people who might be doing, say, any textile preparation for you or working with you to do some manufacturing or product development, we need to receive a PDF email acknowledgement from each of the collaborators confirming that they are aware that they are participating in your project. We don't want anyone to be surprised that they have been included in a grant application. You may upload one image file up to 5 megabytes to support the application, but this is not a workaround to get more characters into your application overall. So this is an image that would support your application, not a lot of text. You must press the submit button when you complete the application. It is not submitted until you hit the submit button and receive the confirmation page. If you have any questions or issues, please do not hesitate to reach out to us via the NYFIC grants at rpi.edu email box, and just make sure you include a subject line of grant applicant question. Okay, so how are we going to evaluate applications? We have a team of outside industry and academic experts who will review the proposals and look at the following. Relevance. How well does your project address a need in New York State's sustainable textile ecosystem? Does it align with our vision and our mission? How well defined is your project plan? Do you have key activities and milestones and a timeline? And how effectively does your plan support the success of your work? Outcomes and impacts. So are your results clearly defined? And how will your project ultimately benefit your organization and New York State? We also look at the team, if you are working with a team that you've put together, and does the team have the expertise and experience, or do you have the expertise and experience if you're working alone, to carry out the proposed work? We want to make sure that the knowledge base is there to be successful. And then budget. Is your budget well justified and realistic and aligned with the goals of the project? To help in terms of support, to help develop informed proposals, we do have some people within the consortium that you can reach out to for some assistance. Many can address supply chain questions, and in some cases provide, direct support or services should you get a grant. You can email again that nyficgrants@rpi.edu, and then include in your subject line the name of the consortium member that you would like to work with, and note that this is a grant applicant request. Please list any questions you have for that mentor or that support person in the body of your email. This is a directory of some of the people who are available to help support you while you're submitting or creating your application. We have several people who are experts in the design area: Asta and Andrea from FIT, Mimi Prober, who works in textile design, natural dyeing. From a biomaterials perspective, we have Theanne Chiros from FIT, and also Helen Za, who is here at RPI and works on biomaterials. Helen is also an associate director of the NYFIC and does a lot of work on the grants committee. We have several experts in plant fibers. Jennifer Jenkins is up at SUNY Morrisville. Dan Walczyk is here at RPI. He is also an associate chair of the NYFIC and is head of the grants committee. Jeff Silberman, who is a former FIT faculty member and now part of the Hudson Valley Textile Project, also deals with plant fibers. From an animal fiber perspective, Shannon Zhang is at the Northeast Fiber Exchange, and she can help in sourcing animal fibers primarily. From a manufacturing perspective, we have Mary Jean Packer, who owns Bat and Kill Fibers and is co-owner and involved in much of the Hudson Valley Textile Project and Field and Fiber Company. So she has a wealth of knowledge on yarn, carding, spinning. Lily Marsh, owner of Lily Marsh Studios, deals in woven textiles. And Kelly Schultes is from Yarn Designs Unlimited, deals with dyeing. Gail Parinello is also from the Hudson Valley Textile Project, and she has a needle felting business. And then finally, Eric DeFeo is the co-founder of Madex Hudson. And Eric provides, is part of our business coaching team, and he can provide guidance on collection development and cut and sew work. Okay, so we've talked about the application process. If you do receive a grant from us, we have several requirements. There are required meetings. You must attend our kickoff meeting, and which is with the FIC, New York FIC team and the full grantee cohort. We have a mid-project check-in to share progress, see how you're moving towards a successful completion of your project, and then a final meeting with a 10-minute project presentation from each of the grant awardees and questions from the NYFIC team. There also are final deliverables. You will need to submit a report to us that is a max of 5 pages, plus 2 pages of next steps or follow-up work. It's due roughly within 1 month of the grant period end, and we will provide you a template so that you have guidance on what we need to see in that report. There's also some post-grant follow-up. Because we are using funds from ESD, NYSTAR, we need to get follow-up from grantees for 3 years. So we will be sending you surveys and asking questions about increases in revenue, jobs that have been created, any intellectual property that you've developed, products that have been developed, and other outcomes. It's a way for us and for the state to see how impactful the grants have been. Okay, so we're now going to get to the questions part of this session. And you can write them in the WebEx chat box. So on the chat, we will go through those. There are also grant FAQs on our website. If after the fact you come up with some questions, you are always welcome to submit them online at the website, or from the website rather, and you can email them to that NYFIC grants email box. All questions and answers from the webinar will be made available to you for review on the site. Okay. And I think that that is the end of that presentation. So I'm now going to go back to, we are going to look at the questions that were submitted in advance. All right, one sec. Let me pull that up. Okay. I'm just going to run through what we already have. And if I can't answer the question, I'm going to defer to some of my colleagues who are on this call. The first question we had related to, do we need to provide information on how and where the grant is spent? The short answer to that question is yes, you will have to provide information. Part of the application is a budget breakdown that has several categories, and we will ask you what you are spending in each of these categories. As a general rule, we are not required to get individual receipts from grant winners, grant award winners, but we do need to know that you are spending the funds the way you told us you would spend them. Also, at one point, a question has come up in the past. The grant is for work and expenses that you occur after the beginning of the grant period. So if you are looking at applying for a grant to support work you are already doing, the grant needs to support your expenses post the award date. Okay. Someone has asked about advocating knitting as a sustainable form of manufacturing for the fashion industry and make consumers more aware. This certainly, it's a sustainable manufacturing project, and that would be eligible for a grant application. So that is definitely something that is eligible. The next question relates to the founder of Known Origin, a B2B verified material exchange, and looking at how fashion uses AI to document chemical composition of textile materials. I'm going to ask Susan, Dan, and Helen. I see no reason why this would not also be eligible and would fall under sort of textile logistics and technology. But do you have any suggestions or any comments on that?
I don't. I would submit it.
Okay.
I would just emphasize that part of the evaluation criteria is economic impact for New York State. So how many jobs will be created, what kind of establishment of supply chain specifically for New York State. So especially with things like AI development, you want to make sure that that is clear, right? So that it doesn't seem like it's just software development and no additional benefit to New York State economic impact, if that makes sense. That's my advice. It is eligible, but that's the additional piece of advice I'd give.
Great.
And
Thanks.
just adding on to that, I think with
Mhm.
knitting as a sustainable form of manufacturing, it's also working with the local supply chain. So doing knitting with New York-based materials.
Okay, great. Thank you, Susan. What kind of organizations does the grant fund? Well, we talked about farmers, researchers, manufacturers. You can be a not-for-profit organization. We have had some universities. It does not necessarily need to be a business that is incorporated in the state of New York. But again, the key is that the bulk of the work is done in New York State, and that the materials are primarily derived from New York State.
And I might add in that there's a physical location in New York.
Okay. All right, can we submit a grant proposal that uses fibers for application beyond fashion? Furniture, interior elements, lighting, what are the limits, if any? We are focusing primarily on fashion and fashion interiors. So that can absolutely mean furniture. It could mean lighting. So we are open, or we are interpreting fashion somewhat loosely. Home products are definitely considered. So if you have further questions about a specific product, we could circle back with you, but definitely interior elements are optional, or an option rather. Hoping the application process isn't too difficult. Can this count as a question? Well, it's, I'm going to say probably not too difficult. I guess that depends on your perspective. We ask that people be thoughtful. We have put some character limits and word limits in so that we can maintain brevity in some sections. But if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
And could I pipe in with something also? The application process, there's a section in there where it talks about your partners and people you'd be collaborating with. And I think it's a really nice opportunity to really flesh out like the reality and the specifics of your project. So, feel free to reach out to some of the people on the mentor list that can either help you directly or can point you in the direction of someone who might be able to help source fiber from, or do some of the textile development, because we really are going from either lab or farm all the way through to development, and that's something that is an emerging with emerging capabilities here. So it's not an obvious piece, and the more researched and the more realistic your application, the better chance you have of having it be awarded.
I'd also like to mention one thing. If you spend time thinking through the proposal and who your partners are and what your goals are and how they fit in with the NYFIC, you're going to have a better chance of getting funding. And the proposal doesn't take a long time to actually enter, but thinking about what you're going to say in each section, you should put some thought into it. And even if you don't get funded, you could use it for the next round, or you could use it for some other type of funding, because it should be an idea that's been germinating within your business and something you'd like to get help with. So spend a little bit of time thinking through it before you actually type in your responses or upload things.
Okay. Thank you, Susan and Dan. What are the obligations for the recipients with the grant, and how has the grant impacted previous winners? Well, we've talked a little bit about the obligations. We do expect you to attend a certain number of meetings, and there will be reporting at the end of the project and for 3 years following the project. So all of that is required. In terms of how the grant has impacted previous winners, I think we could share that, some of them have launched ideas. They've gone through a development process. They've come up with new fabrications. I think it all depends on what project they were working on. I think some of them have gained a lot by going through the business coaching program. They've learned more about how to run a successful business. They've learned more about the development process, the defining customers. Susan, I don't know if you want to add anything on this one.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So you can go on the on nyfic.org/grants or /awardees. You can actually see the ones that were awarded from the past rounds. And, we've had it across the spectrum, like very interesting results, everything from farm to fashion sweaters that are being made to work on the infrastructure and like decombing process for hemp and flax. We have a felted capsule collection that was just recently launched. So, there's a range of different projects, and, the impacts are, dependent on what they set out to do. And, but it's been really exciting seeing how a lot of these have come to life in a really beautiful way.
And Susan, if I'm not mistaken, everyone has access on the website to see the past community calls as well, correct?
Yes.
So several of the previous grantees did do brief presentations on our community calls and talked about their projects in particular. So if you wanted to see some examples of work that's already been done by applicants who are successful, that might be a place for you to go and look at those presentations. Okay. And the last question, the last pre-submitted question was, will this grant fund concept studies or feasibility studies? And I would say as long as the concept or the feasibility study demonstrates that it would improve or shed light on supply chains and help to address any challenges or gaps in the supply chain, that yes, the fund would definitely support that, and that would be eligible. Susan, do you have any thoughts on that as well?
No, I think it's if individuals or organizations are working on these ideas and they want to float that by, feel free to send an email into the NYFIC grants at rpi.edu, and the specifics you can get a little more feedback on. But I think that's a really important piece of the supply chain.
And I should have done this sooner, so apologies, Susan. Susan Easton is our marketing and product development director, and she's been with the NYFIC for almost 2 years now, I think, Susan. So she deals a lot with connecting the researchers and farmers and manufacturers and designers together. So you will be hearing a lot from Susan. She also runs the community calls. Okay, I'm going to switch over now to the chat panel. I think open chat. Okay. First question up says, what happens if the company is registered in California and operates with New York state supply chains? I guess
Actually, it's pretty clear. I mean, if it has some presence in New York, a facility, then it's eligible. If it doesn't, it's just operating with New York supply chain that's not eligible.
Okay, that's very clear. Lots of companies are registered or technically incorporated in other states, but if the work is being done and there is a presence in New York, then that would apply. We have a Hudson Valley yarn store. Can we develop a yarn line to sell at our store? I think this would fall on, well, this is certainly the development of a product or product line that falls under, as long as it's being made with New York-based fibers. But I think the fifth category that we included in this round talks about commercially developing yarns that are commercially available or would commercially apply and perhaps get shared across industry. So Susan, I don't know if you have a perspective on this, if it were development as an exclusive product, or if it's something we would want to share with the industry.
Yeah, so the focus of this is kind of a border question, because the focus of the grants are about trying to take what's been developed beautifully on a craft level and help increase that to be able to work within fashion and interior design industries. So I think that it just depends on how much, in the proposal, how much impact that might have in that vision or in that goal.
Okay. Good answer. The next question is, can the project be more unconventional / lower scale, or is this supposed to be a high scale project with the expectation of creating a project that will guarantee job growth? The job or the projects are intended to spur growth and spur the economy overall in New York. I mean, ultimately, that is what we're looking for. I think that what the scale is can be interpreted different ways. And if it is let's say it's a project that solves a major gap in the supply chain, the project itself may not employ a lot of people, but may open up employment throughout the state. So I would say that, yeah, we are looking for big impacts, but don't let that inhibit you from submitting an application. Yes, we are open to the unconventional.
Yeah, I would just add that if there's a chance that downstream in time that unconventional technology that's developed has the potential to be scaled up and to potentially transform the supply chain, it would be reviewed well. And so we're looking for new ideas of how to grow the supply chain within New York in the face of threats from overseas with commodity manufacturing, which make it difficult to bring back commodity textile manufacturing to the U.S. We're looking for new ideas. So if it fits within that kind of those boundaries, I think it would review well.
Thanks,
yeah, I
Dan.
think we don't want to discourage exploratory, projects that could potentially develop very transformative ideas that will unlock, at some point, eventually down the line, new supply chains, new innovations for job creation in New York. So exploratory is fine, but there should be some indication of how that project, even if it is in this particular time, this particular application exploratory, how it will eventually unlock economic impact for New York.
Great. Thank you both for those added comments. You put that much more eloquently and succinctly than I did. Another question has come up from Stephanie. Can we use cotton as a component of a project that is primarily made of New York wool? cotton isn't produced in New York. I think as long as the, we know that there might be some blending of things, and not every component that is needed for a project is manufactured or available in New York. I would say as long as it's primarily made of New York wool, then that would be acceptable.
And also, as you're developing your proposals, if there is a gap in New York procurement in terms of manufacturing or materials, as long as the majority of it is done here and you can explain why there is a gap and you'd like to go elsewhere, I think that that's something that's considered.
Absolutely. Okay. That is the last. That is the,
Two more.
two more. Yep. I'm seeing this. Okay. Okay. We've got a shepherd in the Hudson Valley raising, Clune Forest. I sell wool at a farmer's market in Troy, New York. I'm looking to purchase a felting machine to make felt to make a number of products. This might be a question for Mary Jean, but how much is Clean Fleece charging to process clean wool into wool bats? Also, I'm also interested in purchasing fiber equipment, such as a wool picker and wool tumbler, to process wool quicker. Is this something the grant covers? I'm going to, I don't want to cut Mary Jean off, but there is information on the website, Hudson Valley Textile Project website, under Clean Fleece, that will talk about what Clean Fleece is doing and processing, and their rates for HVTP members and non-members alike. And you can also get in touch with them or with Shannon to talk about the timing. The short answer to the question is that their grants have been given and could be given for equipment, as well as actual processes or products. So that is something that would be looked at. Again, it's a matter of how would that equipment, like a wool picker or tumbler, contribute overall to the economy, and what impact would it have?
Yeah, I would also add that, for example, a felting machine, if it's a large one, let's say 24 inches or wider, those run 10K plus. There are some cheaper ones that might be lower cost, but that would basically take up the full grant amount. If it's a novel idea, then the grant can cover equipment, but there's not much you can show economic impact without some funds to operate it or to do something useful with it. So if you're looking to buy equipment, again, this is just my thought, my opinion, you should leave some of the grant left for actually doing something with that piece of equipment. So think about what you want to purchase, how much it costs, and what you can do with it.
And I might just add on to that with, it doesn't mean that your whole project has to come in at under 10,000, but what NYFIC will fund is up to $10,000. So if you have matching funds, or if you have something that you want to put in from your organization, that actually is a very strong case. So I think Dan's point about the how and why and the impact of getting equipment, like how that would go into the proposal, would be important. But it doesn't have to be that your equipment can be over $10,000 as long as you are able to show that you've got funds that could cover that.
I also want to add on to this conversation. This is just it's advice for proposals we've seen before that have done very well with reviewers. You want to make sure there is some innovation of some sort, right? Whether that's innovation of product, innovation of a new supply chain, or something that isn't readily already available and can already be done. So with the acquisition of equipment, the question really becomes, is it something that just unlocks something for just you and, you know, your immediate company, or is it something that unlocks something for the community that you're in? Does it unlock certain pathways to innovation or supply chain that will benefit as many people as possible? I think there's often a risk with proposals that just acquire equipment is, you know, a lot of times reviewers say, well, what does this really, you know, give in terms of how many people slash businesses slash supply chains and you know, workforce does it impact? So that's just some advice, like make sure it's not just I'm buying some equipment so that I can do this a little bit better. Like, where is the innovation and what does it really unlock? What's the actual impact beyond you, right?
Excellent point. Okay, and then we have, is this a reimbursement grant? So if I'm interpreting this question correctly, I think that in general, you know, should grant award winners go through a process with us of signing a contract and agreeing to the terms of the contract. And upon submission of an invoice, we award 50%, 50% of the funds that you were granted. And at the midpoint of the project, based on your second invoice, we would then issue the remaining 50% of the funds that you were granted. So it is, we basically are dispersing the funds in two parts, and you should receive the last part of the grant roughly at the midpoint of the 1 year project timeline.
So the short answer is no, it's not a reimbursement grant.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. Any other questions? That's the last one I have. Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for participating today and asking great questions. We hope to hear from you and see your applications coming through the website. Again, please remember, if you have questions, reach out through either the nyfic.org website or the NYFIC grants at rpi.edu email. And we will do our best to get back to you quickly and take advantage of guidance from our mentors and the people who are available. One word of caution, we want you to interact with those folks and get some guidance from them, but this is not intended as an opportunity to do any sort of full-blown product development with these folks prior to during the application period or process. It should be guidance on submitting a successful application. Okay, great. Well, everyone, have a fantastic rest of your day, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future.